Hey friends, and thanks so much for being here. I'm Anna Helman, and today I want to share with you some really fun techniques to play around with to bring some of your colors in your stamping collection, bring some of those colors to life. We have some new colors coming out with Stampin' Up! I'll be sharing those as we go along here. But the techniques I'm sharing you can use with any of the colors in your collection. Let's get started. I'm so excited about the release of these new colors, so I'll introduce them to you one by one as we go through these really fun techniques you can try on your card projects. This first one is Parakeet Party, a really pretty bright lime color. And actually, right now is going to be the very first time I have stamped with these colors, so I'm excited to see how they look, just like you probably are. So the first technique I want to share with you to try to really bring out some of the fun colors you have in your stamping collection is a watercolor wash on the background of your cards. So you can see I laid my block here on the ink pad to pick up some of that color. And what I'm going to do is this is one of my water painters. I have 3 of these and this is the largest one. They all come in a set. I am going to squeeze this and some of the water that is in the handle is going to drop out here on the block. And now I can mix and play with this and just start brushing back and forth to create whatever look I want on this card. Now, this is a pretty light color, so I like to get it a little bit deeper to really bring out the pretty color that this is, this Parakeet Party. So I can add more water if I want. I could get more ink and make this darker. I should mention when I do this watercolor wash, sometimes I use watercolor paper, but a lot of times my favorite is to use the shimmery white paper because it really helps the color glide around and not get stuck in one place. So here's our watercolor wash. Here you can see what my finished card with this one looks like. And we'll move on to technique number 2, which is stamping off. Now, this is such a basic technique. You have probably seen this. If not, it is one that you definitely want to know about. But I am going to do this with this new stamp set called Framed Occasions. And our new color for this one is Orchid Oasis. I'm still debating if this is blue or purple, so I would love for you to vote. Now, the name Orchid probably says which one it's supposed to be, but it's kind of a mix between blues and purples. So what I'm going to do here is, like I said, the stamping off technique, and I'll show you. I think this is going to turn out really fun the way I'm going to do this. This is that hexagon stamp from that stamp set. And I am going to stamp it, not really going to line these up any particular way. I'll stamp it once, and then what I want to do is stamp this several times, but I'm not going to re-ink. So here you can see I stamped a second time, it got a little bit lighter. Sometimes I even like to stamp a third time, or maybe even more than that. And I dropped my block. I have just tiny, tiny smudge lines, but I don't think you'll even notice once I get this card done. And I'm going to repeat. Now, here's something to keep in mind. After stamping this time, I could stamp again on my card, but anytime it goes off the edge when I stamp off, I really like to start over because if you can see this, if you look really close, you can see right there where the edge of my paper was, there's a darker mark, and you always get a funny line at the edge of your paper. So what I'll do now, if I want to stamp like the second time, the second generation, I'm just going to stamp off right here on my paper, my scrap paper, and stamp my second time up here. And then again, I don't want to do my third time because it's going to have a funny line. So we'll do this several times, and my lines may or may not line up perfectly. It's a little bit hard for me to get my head right above this with my camera here. This time we'll do a third stamping off. This time let's do the second. We'll see how these line up. You can see I am just eyeballing this. And if you want to be more precise, you can use your Stamparatus or grid paper just to make sure you're keeping everything straight. So you can see that even by just using one color of ink, you can really get several colors on your project. So now let's take a look at the finished card I created with this one. You can see I did some more stamping off here with that same stamp set. And let's move on to my third technique that I wanted to share to highlight your colors, which is to drag your ink pad across your cardstock to create a background. Here is our third color, Tahitian Tide. I just love this really bright blue. I'll bring my scrap paper back in here. This is so easy, but you can really get some neat effects with this. And what I'm going to do is just drag the ink pad lightly over the background of my card. Now, as you're doing this, you can play around with the pressure, you can play around with the direction. We'll try this with my left hand and see this, not a lefty, but we'll try it out anyway, since I want to try it at that angle. So we can do this one direction. I'm looking at this color and this pattern. This would be a really pretty like beach or ocean card. And I just got a glob. Everything slid around on me. But you can see, you could play around with this. You can go one direction, you can go two directions, but sliding that across the back of your card can give a really neat effect. I'm going to keep this same color here right now for the fourth idea I want to share with you, which is to use a Stamparatus or stamping platform to actually get a darker color than what you have. Now, when we stamped off for the last project, I showed you how to get a lighter color. Well, what if you want a darker color? Because that very may well be the case. I have my stamp lined up right here. These are really fun. I really like the watercolor effect of these greetings in this Lucky You set. But if I'm stamping over this, I am either going to have to use a dark color, or what if I don't have a dark color? Or what if I want my color to match perfectly? What I'm going to do is stamp with my Stamparatus, and I am just going to keep stamping over and over until it is dark enough that we can see it over that background. So there you can start to see the Lucky to Know You greeting coming out. And I could probably stop there if I wanted to, but I just like to see, usually as I keep stamping, at some point it just really pops out. And I just really like that effect of getting a really nice dark greeting. I almost always use this technique if I stamp a greeting in black to get it really nice and dark. And here you can see the finished card that I turned this one into. Next, we will try one that I have not shown this in a long time. This is one I don't see a lot, but I am going to use my Stamparatus again. And your Stamparatus comes with two plates, and I always like to use one rotating here from the right side if I can. So I have my two plates. I just lifted the one out. I'm sticking the other one in. For what we're doing now, I am actually using a photopolymer stamp, which means I need to have my mat in here. And if you want more information on the Stamparatus, I can link you to a video here. I think I forgot to mention that on the aqua painters as well, the water painters from the Watercolor Wash technique. I have lots of techniques and tutorials, but I can link you to that one too, in case you want more information on that. So here we go. The color I'm introducing for this technique is Sweet Sorbet. Really pretty. I can't really call it a pink, and I can't really call it a red. It's just right there between the two. So for this technique, what you're going to do is stamp with white ink on some dark cardstock. I have some black here, and I actually stamped that white 2 times to get it a little bit darker. You could stamp, I debated if I wanted to stamp 3 or 4 to get a really bright white, but I decided to stop at 2. And then you want to do this on your stamparatus so that it stays in the same spot. But you stamp right over that. So what you get with this is you're able to see that color on your black or your dark background. So I think that's a really neat effect. And here you can take a look at the card I made with this one. Now I have one more color to share with you and one more technique to show. And this is another absolutely beautiful color. This one is Starry Sky. These are some of my favorite colors that we have introduced in quite a while. So if you're not familiar with our in colors, how they work, these colors are being introduced with our new catalog, which is being released May 3rd, here in just a few days. And these will be part of our collection for 2 years. So after that 2 years, they'll retire. Definitely, you always want to make sure you order your ink refill when you order your ink pad. I get emails and calls all the time from people looking for old ink refills. It's a good idea just to go ahead and order those when you get these, but we will have this for 2 years before they retire, these in colors. And let's look at the technique I wanted to share for this one, which is spritzing. Now, my last color in the spritzer was some version of green. You can see it a little bit there. Right now, I just have water in my spritzer. I really prefer to use rubbing alcohol, but I didn't have any on hand, so I am just going to use some water, which works too. I'm going to drop 4 drops of ink in here. You can play around with this and make these as light or as dark as you want to. The reason I prefer to use rubbing alcohol is because it dries a little bit faster and it doesn't bow the paper or warp the paper. I'll bring my scrap paper back in one more time for this. And let's do some spritzing. So with this, you can use stencils or masks. You can spritz over die cuts. You can do a lot of different things here, but you just want to mix that up good and then hold it back. Depends on the effect you want, but I usually hold it back maybe 8 or 10 inches and start spritzing. And that looks like my previous color. Here we go. Now we have some Starry Sky coming in. That's actually kind of a neat effect with the 2 colors mixing. Now, if you don't want your paper to bow up and the colors to run, you can use some washi tape or removable tape to hold this down to your work surface. It can be kind of a neat effect when it does run. So I'm going to spritz it a couple more times and just let it go. And here you can see the card I created with this one. So I hope you enjoyed seeing these new colors. I hope you enjoyed these fun techniques you can play around with color. I appreciate you watching along with my videos. If you aren't a subscriber, I would love for you to subscribe now. Send me a comment down below. That helps other crafters find my videos and give me a thumbs up. Hope you have a wonderful day. If you're interested in any of the products I used, there are links in the video description below, as well as links to my website with other tutorials that I mentioned as well. Have a wonderful day. I hope to see you again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.